I'll have to try and coordinate these together. So I'll be doing half the presentation and Simon will be doing the second half, so we'll try and coordinate that. Just acknowledge that our work is supported by all of the organisations here. So I'll start with a quote. I kind of like this one because we're here to talk about work. And beyond the financial reward, work provides a meaning and purpose in life, and it's something that can be empty without it. And this is a theme that has come through our work, talking to people who have been involved in the Dandelion program and the research that we've done with it. But maybe more relevant here, and this is a quote that I really like to use. It's actually someone who wasn't successful getting into the program, but he was very happy to talk with me on the phone. And he said, what's important isn't the money, it's giving something back to society that's important. I can get by on a little bit of money, I'm okay. That's not important. Without a job, I feel like I'm a drain on society. I feel like I'm not giving anything back. I feel it's my duty, it's the right thing to do. We have an understanding of how society works, even if we don't fit in. And he really wanted to make that point clear. You know, he wanted a job, not for the money. And he said, I can work for just a little bit more than what I get on the dole to get to work, just enough for the bus to get me in and out. That's not the point. But what was so important was for him was having a place in society, and that's what work represented for him. So a little bit just quickly through some background. I'm sure most people are familiar with some of these stats. So it's around 1 to 2% of Australians are likely to be on the autism spectrum. The most recent data we have from the ABS shows that only around 40% of people on the spectrum participate in the workforce or the labour force engagement. But that's also a lot of, even that group are only working sort of part-time or a few hours a week, so it's certainly not full-time employment or close to full-time. We know from the literature that employment provides opportunity for lots of things like opportunities to develop social networks, which is a theme that will come up a little bit later, so just keep that in mind. The economic independence, of course, but also improve health and well-being. And this has been shown in people without autism in the general employment literature, but there's not been much work in this area at all in autism, and certainly not in the sorts of programs that DXE, ANZ, etc. Are running. And there's also a strong argument that increasing diversity within the workplace, harnessing talents and expertise of people in the autism spectrum may lead to broad organisational benefits as well as benefits to the individual and to their family. So you've heard all of this with the keynotes this morning. This is also a theme that's really sort of comes through in our research and something that we're looking at. And you'll find those articles on the Cornell site where we've talked to the broader organisation, and there is a real impact on the organisation, which spreads much further than the teams and the 10 or 12 people who are on sites around Australia. Just a quick overview. So this was the sort of latest figures on the DXE program. So you can see they're around Australia. Some of the groups have finished up, so completed 3 years, include Adelaide and Brisbane. There is a new site, a new group starting in Brisbane, and they're going through the selection process at the moment. But what's important and is really outstanding, I think, with this program is that after 3 years, around 80 to 83% of participants who started are now employed in full-time or close to full-time positions. Either some have left the program early, after a year or so, but they've moved into at least equivalent, if not higher level positions than within the program. So it's a success. But looking at these groups, and this is Adelaide and Brisbane, so the first two groups that have now completed 3 years. So around 45% are currently at equivalent APS level 3. around a quarter of those who finished at level 4 and a quarter at level 5. So it's really impressive, and we've been talking to economists and doing some work on the economics of this, and they just tell me this is outstanding. There's no other programs that have outcomes like this, so it's quite good. Another nice little quote here: job provides a purpose, just to switch now to what I'll be talking about with our research. Looking forward to getting up in the morning, going to work. It's challenging, yes, sometimes stressful, but in the end, I know that I've done a good job. And that's from one of the participants in the program. So we've been doing research over the last 3 years, or 3 and a bit years, funded by DXC, also DHS and Defence. And we've been asking that question. Well, we don't really know if employment within these sorts of programs is actually going to have a positive benefit to people. We sort of hope it will. We like to think it will. The literature from the non-autistic community sort of shows that employment has positive effects, but we really didn't know. So we conducted a sort of a large study with a lot of questionnaires that people within the program have been completing over the last 3 years. We've looked at, or what I'll focus on at the moment, is mental health, depression, anxiety, positive wellbeing, job satisfaction, autism traits, relationship with autism traits with these things, and I'll also talk about daily living skills independence, as these are a couple of the measures from our data here. So this is data from our across all sites with people that participated in our study and who provided data at least across 1 year. Now, we had 36 people who participated and provided data across those time points. And we'll look at some data from, we have a small group of people who we had data before they started the program, and then everyone else from just after starting, about a month in, to a 12-month follow-up on those measures. And the story's really, it's a bit hard to interpret because it's not all that interesting. So this is across our full group, and so from pretty much from starting the program to a year in, we didn't see the improvements that we hoped for across all of our mental health and wellbeing measures. At the same time, we didn't really see a decrease. There were very slight improvements statistically in job satisfaction, very slight decrease, which is quite normal, and a slight increase in daily living skills measures. But overall, things were pretty stable. We did look into this a little bit deeper, and we found that there was a small group of people around, depending on how you look at it, maybe half a dozen who did improve across our measures, but then there are also maybe half a dozen who actually got a little bit worse. So I interpret that as, you know, getting to work and even working in the type of environment that Darren program is, which provides a lot of support, it's still stressful. It's still tough to get through the workday for some people. At the same time, I think the support provided within the program has allowed most to be able to function and do quite well. But we didn't see the improvements that we did hope for here. When we look at with the smaller group, our data prior to starting the program, the story's the same. So we see that there's a pretty consistent story across those measures. So it means that from prior to starting the program to about a year in, we didn't see a lot of change on our health and wellbeing, mental health and wellbeing type measures. When we look at it in retrospect, well, kind of makes sense, right? What was the program trying to do? It was trying to get people into work and support them in work and give them training. It wasn't targeting mental health or wellbeing at all. It was something that we looked at, but you know, there haven't really been. There wasn't really a targeted program to support these areas. We did a little more complicated statistics on this, but the interesting story is here that what we looked at were, well, what are the things that are predicting better or worse outcomes on our mental health and wellbeing measures? Positive well-being, which is sort of feeling happy and good about yourself. So it's a little bit different than the depression and anxiety, was as a predictor of depression. So we see that as a potential target for improving mental health and well-being within the workforce, if we can work on the things that go into positive well-being and focus on that, rather than sort of focus on the treating depression and anxiety, which I think is the way we've traditionally looked at it, that by focusing on the positive things, then we might be able to offset some of the effects of depression and anxiety. And I should say that overall, the reason we're looking at this stuff is because depression, anxiety, mental health concerns are quite elevated amongst people on the autism spectrum. The other area in the blue on the end, in terms of other potential targets, is that social support is something that we found pops up consistently when we look at depression, when we look at anxiety. People who report feeling having stronger social support tend to do better on depression and anxiety, or have lower scores. And here we found it popped up again and predicted positive well-being over the 12 months. So we feel that this is another target, and that's something that the workplace does provide in programs like the Dandelion program, where there are quite a lot of opportunities for social support and social integration into a broader workforce, and also within the teams themselves. What we want to do is try and maybe capitalise on that. Simon will talk to you about that in a moment. So for my little bit, so overall, as I said, we didn't really find the changes that we were maybe hoping for in mental health and well-being. But when we look back at it, well, it does make sense. These things are pretty stable and hard to change unless you're really targeting them. We did find that positive mental well-being, or positive well-being, was a potential protective factor against depression at 12 months, which is something consistent with the literature outside of the autism area. And again, social support popped up for us. If you've read our depression papers, etc., that was something that we identify as being quite important for the development of depression and other mental health problems as a potential predictor of positive well-being at 12 months, so another potential target. So we think that there's a real need for evidence-based mental health and wellbeing supports in the workplace, and I'm starting to see this, much more broadly. We've got programs at LaTrobe University now where we're seeing that this is a target for the federal government to improve mental health and wellbeing in the workplace, seeing it's really important. The UK is seeing this as something that's really targeted. So I guess it makes sense that we also see it as something being that's important in this area. I might hand over to Simon. So he's going to talk now about some of our planned work, which will be supported by ANZ.
Hi. So what I'm going to talk about is supporting mental health and wellbeing in the workplace, with a specific focus on individuals with autism. So the results from the longitudinal studies along the lines of a report from the Dandelion program of the mental health brief. And what this report sort of suggested were mental health concerns within the groups going through the program present challenges to daily functioning and productivity. So we see changes in mood, depression, or sleep disturbances. It's also been shown to have some effect on co-workers and support staff. So DXC Technology and ANZ Bank are investing in the mental health of their employees with autism, and by doing this, they're supporting our Olga Tennyson Autism Research Centre to help develop a mental health and wellbeing resource package. So within the autism space, there's a lot of information and training around the key barriers to accessing employment for people on the spectrum, but there's very little on the specific focus on mental health. So that's what we're going to try and step in. Well, mental health and also wellbeing, as from Darren's studies showed, is a good indicator of a protective factor. Am I doing this right? Yes, so I've been tasked to develop an online mental health and wellbeing resource package. So the goal for this package is to be focused on employees with autism, managers and their support staff. we want the project to be practical and versatile. So we want it to not only be able to help people develop knowledge around mental health and well-being, but also to serve as sort of a go-to guide or resource when something comes up. Or if something comes up. So the evidence for this sort of thing is promoting mental health and well-being in the workplace has been shown to have a positive impact on employment outcomes and overall mental health and well-being. So it's from the Internal Labour Organisation. So studies have shown that educational programs have positive outcomes on supervisor outcomes, so increased knowledge of mental health and well-being, and improved interaction with employees who have mental health concerns. And this can include interacting with them better during their time off and welcoming back to the work better. It's also shown that it reduces stigma. There's also employee outcomes for the more broad population, that is reduced absenteeism, so reduced sick leave, but also reduced presenteeism, which is when you come to work and you're not at your best, which reduces productivity. So the package we're going to develop is going to be working with the 3 recommendations from the ILO report. The first is the promotion of mental health and well-being. So within this, we want to do just general autism awareness training, both as to give everyone a better idea of autism, including participants themselves who sometimes get information from scrap that, sorry. And we'll also have mental health and wellbeing awareness training, and also have the combination of the two, so where mental health, wellbeing and autism training interact. The second step was also identifying problems, intervening early in the workplace. So with most sorts of training programs, recognising early signs of stress and mental health and negative well-being. So this is important within yourself, and also being able to see it within others so you can know when to provide support. So we'll also then include evidence-based methods and strategies to help manage mental health and well-being within the workplace. And these will be targeted more broadly for general mental well-being and mental health, but also have an autism focus with specific factors that may benefit the autism employees. And the third area is support and rehabilitation. So the training package will help people understand good practices in seeking support, but also in offering support such as mental health and first aid. We'll also cover best practice managing absenteeism, presenteeism and the difficult track back to work. We'll also cover reasonable accommodations and provisions to help people succeed and thrive within the workplace, and also cover the limits of support. So when the workplace is not the best place for support and where outside help would be best. And following on this, we hope to assess this training by having a research program that assesses this training and resource package in the environment. So we'd hope to use a mixed method approach for this, which would include qualitative research, so interviewing the people who undergo the training and seeing its effects on them, but also having some quantitative research that measures well-being, job performance, autism knowledge, and social inclusion in the workplace, just to get an understanding of how the training package has worked within the workplace. Okay. That is all, thank you.